Today's guest is Tanya Lim, who has been working with pets professionally since 2013 when she founded Play Pals, a highly personalized dog walker and cat sitting services company in London and then in New York City. Tanya is a certified professional dog trainer, the co-founder and head trainer of Family Pupz, which is a dog training and doggy doula services company that is based in Denver, Colorado. And in addition to all of this, she's also the co-host of the Family Pupz Podcast, where she discusses the most commonly requested dog training and dog behavioral issues with her husband and partner. So, Tanya, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Love it. And yeah, actually, you're also the first one that I've ever had who does anything related to pets or dog training. I've had plenty of coaches on this show, but I think you're the first person that does anything pet related. So I'm excited to actually dive into this and to hear more about how you got to doing what you're doing.
Yep, happy to share.
Yeah. So contextualize it for us. Like, how did you, I'm obviously clearly like a love of, dogs and pets and things like that. But yeah, break it down how that
Yeah,
became a business and where you're at right now.
sure. Yes. So I'm originally from Bulgaria and I moved to London in my early 20s after I had graduated university. And as a young person, I was kind of confused about what I wanted to do with my life or what I was passionate about or what I wanted my job to be. So I was on a journey for a few years that I would be doing fun jobs, but nothing too serious or nothing taking me down a professional career path because I studied economics, but I couldn't see myself working in that field. So I was, yeah, just trying to figure things out. And it was a time when I was starting to build some more self-awareness around feelings, like starting to do a yoga practice and just, introduced to Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, and just starting to be a little bit, more aware and conscious of how I show up in the world. And at that time, I kind of had this epiphany moment. I was in my home and I was again thinking about, okay, well, what do I want to do with my life? And I just remembered a few days prior how there were a bunch of dogs and I was just so happy to be around them and to see them and to interact with them. And then it just came to me. I was like, well, why don't I start a dog walking and pet sitting business? I love dogs and I love cats. And right away, I got super energized and I started typing in, just doing some research on the area that I lived in at the time and what those businesses look like. And I was very happy to discover that there were quite a few businesses that were really doing well and thriving. So that just gave me the confirmation that I should really go for it. And it really is. Ever since that moment, I have been working on these businesses. I started my first business in London and I had it for about 2.5 years. Then I moved to the States and I started a new dog walking pet sitting business in New York City that was doing pretty well. I had a couple people working for me. And then I really felt like moving into training was the natural progression of what I was doing. I really love learning and I felt like I couldn't have the dog walking business for much longer because I was starting to be really tired with the whole thing, even though I loved it when I was younger. So I began my certification journey when it comes to taking courses and really learning about dog training. And that was probably a year prior to moving out of New York. So then when we moved to Denver about 4 years ago now, I started only dog training, and that has been my business here.
Got it. And that's now the main business, like the dog training, and like you're working assuming with the owners, and you do all the things you need to do to help them train their dogs.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I think that that's a great, like it follows such a natural progression of like, okay, well, what is it that I like, and then finding it, and then diving right into it and seeing, okay, well, how can I actually like monetize this, and then getting the better skill set in that, and exploring and diving into, okay, what's the next step and what's this going to evolve into. So yeah, I love that story because it actually reflects a lot with regards like how my story went as well, and a lot of previous guests. So yeah, all of the things that all make sense. So to then just dive right into it, like what are the top problems that you're facing right now?
Um, well, so how I look at it of where I am right now is an end of a cycle. So I felt like I came to Denver and I started the business, and I've been very excited about learning and working with clients and really giving it my all. But again, I feel like I'm reaching a point where I have the need to pivot a little bit. So now where I'm heading is digital courses, kind of like a newer space for me, because I know that last year we purchased a house and we were doing all this remodeling, but I definitely noticed that our revenue was exactly the same as the year before. And all of my efforts and energy were in the house, which I guess was a good thing that we managed to have the same revenue. But I feel like unless I um, do something different and keep pushing myself next year, the chances are that I'm just going to be right back in the same spot. And I definitely want to continue growing and evolving.
Okay. So, I mean, like that seems pretty clear, right? Like
Sure.
my revenue has plateaued, my attention was elsewhere. Like it's a big thing to do any sort of renovation or remodeling. So it makes sense. You're actually celebrating the fact that nothing dipped, right? Like, which is great. I
Yeah.
agree with you. So what really is the problem there then?
The problem. Well, I guess some of my problems stem from sometimes making promises to myself that there are some projects that I need to work on, and also being quite good at procrastinating and not always doing the thing that I put in my calendar and I promised myself doing. And perhaps because of that, I am not where my ideal self would be. However, maybe just to add on, also with the year starting out and feeling good about everything, we just hired some help. So someone who can help with marketing and just kind of like the more of the execution parts of things, because I know what I want and I know what my goals are and I can really pinpoint them. But sometimes I just don't have enough time to go and execute everything. Um, but yeah, maybe my problem sometimes too is that I choose to procrastinate or do something else instead of doing the things that I know I need to do.
Got it. So would you say that the problem then is more about clarity on like, okay, well, what is it that I need to do, or what's actually exciting or motivating? Or is it the procrastination?
I think that the problem is that whenever I set things, like I put things in my calendar, the problem is that there is a 50-50% chance whether I'll actually manage to accomplish that. And I would say I'm getting better, but still there are instances where I don't do it and then I feel guilty about not doing the thing. And um, yeah, I guess if I eliminate this from my life or from my day-to-day business life that will make things easier for me.
Got it. So what are because it's like 50-50 on what I do or don't get done. So what are the things you do get done and what are the things you don't?
Well, when it comes to working on my courses, so I was able to get a course out because I got a partner. So I got another trainer and we partnered up, and it was a lot easier to have a partner and to just kind of, set the time. I know she's coming, I know we're doing it. And to get it done. When it comes to the other course that I've been working on, it's definitely been taking much longer. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes it can be that I need things to be right and perfect. I need the background of my videos to be a certain way, or I need to be in a certain space in order to record. And yeah, maybe it's a part of, on one side it's good to care about the product that you're putting out there, but on the other side, I wonder if that's also just some of the excuses that I make for not actually shooting the footage or doing the things that I need to do.
Got it. So like, to go back to the original question, the things that do get done are the ones that there's an external pressure to them. I partnered up with somebody, so now I have to show up, or there's like client work that needs to be finished, so I do it.
Yeah.
But if it's something that's quote unquote self-motivated, that's the parts that don't actually get done.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yep.
Okay. And one aspect of the reason that behind why the self-motivated pieces don't get done is, okay, so I need things to be right and perfect. So there's very much a perfectionist block there. Is that the only thing that goes on in your head when you're thinking about doing the things you need to do, or is there something else?
Perhaps there is also, just how much time or energy I have that day to do it. And sometimes because I really love learning and reading, I can procrastinate by thinking that I need to learn more about the thing instead of just doing the thing, which it became really apparent to me last year, and I am doing more of the thing than just trying to find a book that I need to read in order to help me do the thing.
Right. So is that really about learning versus it's actually just distraction through learning?
It's probably a little bit of both.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
But at that point, when you indulge in it, like, yeah, you're learning some things, but it's like it's got nothing to stick to because you're just learning to have a productive version of actually avoiding the work.
Yeah. Yes, in a way, yes.
Okay. Got it. So there's this perfectionist tendency. There is the pattern of avoidance. And what are the types of tasks you tend to be procrastinating on and avoiding?
Um, um, sure. I would say those are the main ones. Sometimes tasks that require deeper work, like sitting down to write a blog post or something else, can be more difficult, and it may take me longer to complete. But I would say that I'm pretty good about keeping these to-do lists on my desk and crossing things off, and the ones that are not crossed are being transferred over and over again until I get them done. It's just not always as instant. But again, I do have a good amount of things that I need to do around the business. They're not maybe that's the difference between working in the business and on the business, because working in the business is a full-time job too. And when it comes to working on the business and crafting emails and doing research and reaching out to people, that sometimes gets pushed behind.
Okay. So would it be safe to say that the majority of the things you don't end up doing or avoid doing are like working on the business?
Some parts of it, yeah. Some parts that require more research and reaching out is, yeah, what I typically, what I may avoid doing.
Okay. So when you say reaching out, what do you mean?
For example, if I am, let's say, trying to market our course, the one that we already have, there are certain media outlets or accounts that I need to research in order to get a bunch of partners that I can send, let's say, a value proposition. Hey, we have this course. We think it'd be great for your audience. You know, are you interested? We want to do affiliate marketing. So just finding people or accounts on Instagram, for example, that can be good matches for those marketing efforts and reaching out to them. It really does feel like, I don't know, sometimes to me it feels like it's a big deal, even though when I actually have the time, like the hour to sit down and do the research and write the email and then send it out, I just feel so accomplished, and it actually wasn't as big of a deal. But maybe that first step of actually taking the action is the hardest one.
Okay, got it. And is that because you dislike the task itself? Like it's not a task that you are very much aligned with, or, you know, it's clearly in your zone of genius? Or is it like something else? Like what's the narrative before you start the task?
What's the narrative? Okay. I probably don't like it so much. And I also don't like the idea of putting myself out there when I know the chances of me not hearing back or things not working out are pretty high. So that is one of the things that I'm going to outsource this year. So I
Okay,
don't have to deal with it.
got it. So really then that avoidance and procrastination, it seems like it's actually about, I don't like being rejected.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So when I first was starting my business, I can be pretty shy. And I remember going to a park in London with my business cards, thinking I'm gonna give them out, and I get like so stressed about, oh, I need to approach these people and give them something, that I just completely get stuck and sit on the bench and just watch everyone, and then I just give up and I'm like, all right, well, this is not gonna work out. So I would just have to try something else. But yes, the fear of rejection can be a big one for me.
Got it. Okay. And that definitely is going to relate to, I have to be, you know, always things have to be right. Things have to be perfect. Like everything has to be polished that I put out, because if it isn't, then there's a higher chance it's not going to be good. So then it's going to be another indirect rejection as well.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, does that land for you or not? Like it's your experience, right?
Yeah, it can feel like rejection if I have put effort into creating a piece of content and then it's not performing very well. It can definitely get to me. It doesn't deter me from continuing to work, but I like receiving positive reinforcement. So when it doesn't perform the way that I was hoping that it will, it can definitely get to me.
Okay. Got it. So you got these kind of three main patterns now. One of, okay, I do things to avoid rejection. I procrastinate, and then there's perfectionism there as well, right? Those patterns right now are putting you in a state where really you're not spending as much time as you want working on the business. You're just getting the stuff done that you need to fulfill in the business, like just to deliver on the things that you need to do. Okay. And if there's no external pressure to overcome these patterns, they generally don't get done, or they get done very slowly.
Yes.
Okay. So what comes up when I reflect that back?
I am aware of those when it comes to the perfection. Yeah, being a perfectionist, I am able to let go of that sometimes too. For example, in my other projects, when my partner will say, hey, that's good enough, I'm totally okay with like, all right, sure, that's good enough. That works for me too. For some reason, when it's just me and myself, I definitely have higher standards. Maybe it's because of the people that I'm looking up to that have good quality content. I really want to be at a level that satisfies that need for myself. And I can see how that can just make things longer. And the fear of rejection. Yeah. I mean, I've done it. I have, for example, after those instances, I've had other instances where I needed a partner, for example, going with my husband, and he's there encouraging me to go and talk to this person, which I've done. And then in New York, I've done similar things too, but it's not really like my preferred way of doing things, really putting myself out there. And that's why for this year, just delegating a bunch of stuff, so delegating some of the work when it comes to finding another trainer to help me out, and some of the marketing efforts is what I hope to hone in on the things that are my strengths, and to delegate the things that are holding me back as much as I possibly can.
Got it. So it's not one of these things that's like a full-on paralysis. It's more like putting the brakes on your momentum. Like it kind of sounds like that. It's not, I'm totally stopped. It's things are moving a lot slower than I would like because of these patterns.
Sure, yeah. Things were moving a lot slower because of the house last year. I don't know if I didn't have the house to work on, if I would have taken out the 2 other courses that I'm working on. I hope so, but I had a good excuse, I guess.
Right. Well, I mean, like you tell me, it's I'm just reflecting back what I hear. So you tell me what your experience is, right? Because like what from the outside looking in, there's 3 main things that I see, and yeah, there's overlap between them, but like the perfectionism, the I don't like rejection, and then the procrastination, like those are the 3 main, you could say, leadership issues that you're dealing with right now. So
yeah.
why don't you then zoom out and you tell me, like, how are these creating problems inside of your business?
I know that the procrastination is just me not doing what I need to do in order to get where I want to get. So yeah, I think that that's my biggest block. And I would say that I have more systems and strategies in place that help me do that. And even with the beginning of this year, I find myself in the evenings being able to be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna sit here. I put timers on, and I just whatever, like 1 hour or 45 minutes, I'm doing the thing. So I do think that I'm constantly working on these issues that I know are preventing me from getting to the place that I want to be. Yeah, but I could still be better.
Okay. So you've mentioned this whole sense of like, I'm not where I want to be, right? Like, these things are preventing me from getting to where I want to be, which makes sense, right? And whenever you talk about the pattern, you always follow it up with a potential solution that doesn't seem like it's being implemented. So either I'm going to outsource this or I do time blocking. So I kind of get it done. So yeah, these things are like in the way. They're not moving me to where I want to be, but there's not really a sense of like urgency, or there's not really a sense of like gravity to how these things affect it. They're kind of more like, they sound more like nuances than they actually sound like problems, which is totally fine if that is your experience. It's just there's something listening, like it doesn't necessarily add up. And if it is a nuisance, cool, then it's just a nuisance. So what are your thoughts with that reflection?
Mm-hmm. Well, the place that I want to be is right now where I am. It's great. And the place where I want to be is also, I hope, really great. It's just a different direction that I am looking to take, but I'm not in conflict with where I am at all, because I am still in a very good place, and I'm grateful for everything and everything I've learned from my clients too. I I don't know if I see them necessarily as big problems. I see them as the work that I'm doing on myself that is just kind of keeping me moving forward.
Got it. So yeah, that I think is a good observation to have, because for you, this sounds more like I'm in a good place. I know that great can be around the corner. So like it's not necessarily like I need to like jump there and move there right now, or like do all these things to like get there, but like I'm trickling along and I'm moving towards great. Like, would that be accurate with regards to what you feel?
Yeah, I feel like this is the year of just moving in that direction. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, and I think that that's what I was getting at when I was talking to you. Like, okay, this doesn't seem like it's paralyzing. It just seems like it's slowing things down. And I think there's a part of you that maybe likes that. Like, I don't know if it's because it was a lot to go through to do the renovation. So, that took a lot out of me. I don't necessarily want to now add all this stuff to where I'm going. Because sometimes we resist things that we know are going to be taxing on ourselves. So there's a part of us like, just put the brakes on, like relax kind of thing. So I don't know what lands for you there, if anything.
I do value my own personal time and space for sure, and just time for me to gather up my energy, because when I work with clients, it can be quite taxing, it can be quite emotional. I'm not just there for the dogs, but also sometimes I can be a therapist for the humans too. So I do prioritize finding balance and keeping myself sane with the things that I have going on in order to be most effective at what I do. So yeah, it could be that sometimes I'm making the choice to just give myself time to go for a walk or to do yoga instead of reaching out and sending emails to companies, for example.
Got it. And I think that's a good thing to actually acknowledge and take ownership of, because it's like I'm prioritizing my own self-care. I'm prioritizing the amount of energy expenditure I want this business to have. If I'm comfortable right now and it's good, could it be better? Sure. But at the end of the day, if I have to push it towards better, if I have to push it towards great, that bleeds into what I don't actually want, which I think is actually a beautiful thing, because it means you're actually creating it out of prioritizing, okay, this is how I want to show up in my business, versus I should get all of the success, then I will feel good, which is oftentimes what I see in my coaching and with people that I work with. So A, I just wanted to acknowledge you for that. And B, well, actually, okay, before I continue, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it does. I have a hard time relating to entrepreneurs who are like doing 12 to 16 hours a day and eating ramen for every meal. Like, that's not where I want to be. I value balance and self-care.
Perfect. So given that that is true, I think one of the invitations I would have for you here is to really take ownership of that. Like, knowing that that is something you prioritize, knowing that that is something that actually fulfills you, knowing that that is actually a value. Take ownership of that and like release the guilt of, well, I should be working harder. Especially if you strategically, you have like a lot of answers. Like, I can outsource all of this reach out stuff. I can outsource blog post writing. I can outsource some of the content. Cool. Especially if you're in a good position, like reinvesting some of that money into these tasks seems like it aligns with your values.
Mm-hmm.
And while it won't get rid of the core reasons why you fear rejection, why you procrastinate and have avoidance patterns, why the perfectionism is a thing, those are going to stick with you until you address them. It doesn't negate the outsourcing solutions, but it doesn't sound like really those are a priority right now, nor are they actually impacting your business to the point where it's a problem. It's just more of a nuisance. So what lands for you there?
Um, yeah. Well, yes. So whenever I do make a decision to take time for myself, and if I get the voice telling me, "Hey, you should be working," I try to make peace with it. I try to manage it as much as I can, unless it's a situation where I really should be doing, and then I work on, okay, well, let's just go and do 30 minutes, whatever I need to do. Let's just go and get it done. I found it a long time ago, washing dishes was an exercise that really helped me get into these patterns, because it was so easy, as a young person, to just put the dish and just be like, oh, I'll do it later. And when I was learning about self-discipline, that was one of the starting points. Okay, have the dish and I'm going to wash it now, or tasks that are under 2 minutes or so. Yes. And I do think that it is normal for us to outsource the things that are not our strongest suits. I think it's a healthy thing to do. When it comes to my fear of rejection, I do make efforts to really put myself in situations where I may be afraid, or I may be speaking in front of an audience. And I mean, I don't know how that's going to go, or if they're going to like it or not, but I do have that bravery in me to put myself in these situations. Yeah, I think that the main thing that I am continuing to work on is more of the idea of enjoying the process as much as I can, and not attaching so much of my personality or personal achievement to the successes of my clients or my projects or the things that I put out in this world, because I do care a lot, and sometimes it really gets to me if things are not always aligned and always smooth sailing, which I know it's not possible. But yeah, differentiating between, hey, this is me and this is my personal time, and now is my, after that is the time to think about the business and my clients and my projects and the feedback that I'm getting in order to make things better.
Yes, I think there was a lot there. So number one, I just want to acknowledge, right, like I do things that require bravery to kind of fight through this. This is a prime example of, allowing yourself to be witness in this space. So kudos to you for actually walking your own talk. Okay. Number one. And then number two, yeah. So even like the last part that you mentioned, so there's like one of your core woundings is probably something to do with, always making sure that I'm liked, always making sure that nobody can reject me, always making sure that everybody else is okay and I'm perceived in a particular way, that my reputation's not tarnished in whatever sense. So that's a common one. It's going to be a common thing that gets pushed whenever there's visibility involvement. So yeah, those are right now, it sounds to me like they're just more affecting the quality of your state from time to time. I don't really think they are translating into a major problem in your business. Are they a friction point and a break? Yeah, 100%. I think you could be moving faster without them. But it doesn't sound to me like there is, like, it's like a nice to have to like eliminate this versus yeah, like this is a major problem for me. So what lands for you there?
Um, yeah, I was reflecting on also what could be another problem when it comes to where I am to where I want to be. And what I think is a big fear for me is that idea, yeah, of the whole visibility aspect and putting myself out there. And then I know that there are so many people that are not very kind on the internet, and especially the dog training field is very, it can be kind of mean because there is positive reinforcement, there is punishment, there is tools, there is this, there is that. It's like everyone is fighting, and this trainer puts this post, and then all these people like go and like attack them, and it can be quite a mean space. And me putting myself out there in a way that can open up the space for those trolls to come after me is quite a terrifying idea to have to experience. So that is definitely another fear component of, okay, well, do I really want like everyone to see my content and so many people to buy my courses that at the end of the day, sooner or later, someone's gonna say, oh, that wasn't good enough. Like that didn't help me and my dog. And I know that when I am there, like the more I experience it, the easier it will be, and I'll learn to cope with it and manage it. But right now, it just seems pretty scary place to be.
Absolutely. And I think that right there is kind of the crux of this particular conversation. I think where you're at is a good place. You're in a comfortable place. You're not in a panicky place where like I need to make something work, which is good. There's nothing wrong with comfort. It should be celebrated. It aligns with your values of how you want to live your life. What you just mentioned with the visibility thing, and then the trickle effects of that in all of your other patterns, the avoidance, the rejection, the perfectionism, those are going to be the ones that you can't outsource your way out of. Meaning you can outsource the reach outs, you can outsource the production of your content, you can outsource the scheduling and the whatever, tasks administrative wise around visibility. You cannot outsource yourself. So I think your limits beyond, because we started this whole conversation saying you're in this transition period, end of a cycle, opening up of a new chapter. Right now, that's comfortable. And I think it is going to be all of these visibility issues that are going to be the bottleneck to how big you get. Meaning exactly what you just said. If I get bigger, all of these fears, the trolls, the negative comments, the bad customers that shouldn't have been customers and now complain, those are going to be very real things because so many people use their pets just like their kids as projections of their own, stuff. So that's certainly going to happen. So what this is reflecting back to me is like, A, great awareness, and then B, this is really your choice point, right? I either address these things now where I'm comfortable to set the foundation for my growth, or I start the growth and have to then handle these patterns and eliminating them and coping with them and managing them and whatever, and the growth itself, right? Or I recognize that I don't want to grow past this point, then there's not really a need to address any of the visibility in the likeness factors. So, well, what lands for you there?
Um, well, I would say that I am always working on myself and my patterns and my reactions, and I've made a lot of progress, and I probably am going to be on that second journey where I I don't think that's a choice. I feel like that's just where I need to be. So I am going to be on this journey no matter what it takes. And probably I'm going to need to just address things as they happen because we spend more time worrying than it is the reality, right? So it may be this or it may not be like that at all. So I see myself figuring things out as they happen and continuing to work on the things that I know I need to improve and overcome in those ways.
Beautiful. So I love the commitment to self improvement, right? And again, it's reflected in multiple instances in this conversation. So you've mentioned multiple times, okay, I'm gonna like address it, I'm gonna work through it, etc. So what are like what is in your toolkit to actually work through these things? How are you trying to address them?
Well, as I mentioned with the procrastination, I have the time blocks. Those are working really good for me. Like I just sit down here, I move phone away, I set up a timer, I have my list and my things that I need to do, and I do them, as well as adding more times in the evenings or in the weekends, whatever, like given an hour or so. I find that sometimes I just get overwhelmed with there is so much to be done. But if I take my own advice and break things down to small, achievable steps, then you can make faster progress. So that's how I'm working on my procrastination. The fear of rejection. Again, I put myself out there. I applied to be a guest on dog training podcast, or I was a speaker at a conference. So even though I may get rejected, I continue doing what I need to do or what I aspire to do in order to be. And when it comes to visibility, I mean, we have our podcast. I'm on Insta. I'm constantly creating content. We have a YouTube channel. I'm putting myself out there, and whatever happens, happens. Like sometimes I've deleted some comment, like a comment or so that has been mean, but I definitely have not been attacked by anyone, which I've heard stories about, like my friends, having to leave through. But yeah, I am putting myself out there all the time, which which just kind of builds my confidence. And I mean, sometimes I'm going to get rejected too, and that's okay. I meet clients, and sometimes they don't work with me. They don't get the package, and I've learned to let it go. We weren't the right match, so that's okay.
Perfect.
Making peace with that.
So a lot of it is tactical and essentially exposure. I'll just lean into areas where I get more exposed to the things that I'm insecure about, with the hopes that over time, with enough reps, it'll kind of go away.
Yeah, either that or gradually exposing myself to the thing and getting little positive reinforcement along the way, so that I can just kind of build my confidence over time. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously this is my area of expertise, but this is kind of what it sounds like to me. But I'm assuming this is very similar to how you might train a pet, right? Like you reinforce and like gradually get them to be okay with a certain thing, reinforcing them positively to lean more into it, modeling the behavior closer and closer to what you want, so that eventually like it leads to that. Like, would that be accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So what if you just eliminated all of these, like if you can wave a magic wand and you didn't have to go through the thousands of repetitions, what then?
What then? Um, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll be the enlightened one, and I just walk around spreading joy and knowledge and wisdom on everybody.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. If that's the case, then you could flip this around and teach me how to do the same thing. So I'm all for that as well. So here's what I reflect back. Why do you think it was so hard for you to even imagine what that's like?
Because I think that it's the human condition. It's like we have some sort of a hardship, we get better at that thing, and then something else appears that is causing a hardship or obstruction, and then you need to figure it out. I don't know if there is ever a time when something isn't difficult or is not needed to be worked on.
So agreed. Right? There's always going to be difficulty. There's always going to be efforts. There's always going to be the next thing to work on. Right? That wasn't necessarily the question. The question was, and I can get it more specifically, right? Like your path to eliminating perfectionism, fear of rejection, procrastination, invisibility is put more reps into exposure, which you've already been doing for years, because you mentioned some of these same patterns in New York. So my question to you is, well, if those four things, you could wave a magic wand and eliminate them today, what's next?
I don't know, signing like $1 million contracts with companies and being all over the place. Traveling around to give talks, like all the things that I dream about are probably going to be more attainable. Yeah, sometimes it just seems like between where I am right now and that vision of what I mentioned, the amount of time and space seems to be so big that unless I break it down to small steps, I don't see how I can attain it at all.
Okay, so that's exactly where I'm getting at. Rooted behind all of these questions, or rather your answers, is this belief that this has to take a long time. Everything always has to require work. And like it can't be easy or simple. Right? Like to the point where I had to multiple times ask you, well, if you didn't have perfectionism, didn't really fear a lot of rejection, didn't feel fear visibility, it's like it took multiple iterations, like, well, hold on, then I could like have everything that I wanted, but like, no, it has to, like, I have to do a lot of work to do those things. So what lands for you there?
Well, I I wish, but I think that it can be hard to just wake up on overnight success, that you put out a podcast and now all of a sudden a million people are listening to it. I certainly am trying to get there. I just don't know how to make it happen.
Agreed. And I was referring to your own inner state, right? Like if
Uh-huh.
you got rid of your fear of rejection tomorrow, that doesn't mean you're going to have a million listeners, right?
Sure.
Your pattern is avoidance. Look at what your brain just did. I said, okay, you get rid of rejection tomorrow. What happens? It's like, oh, well, you can't just overnight have a million listeners. Had nothing to
Mm-hmm.
do with the original question, right?
Mm,
There's a part of
okay.
you that's scared to even consider that things could be just easy.
Mm-hmm.
Not easy without effort to go do the thing. That's 110% required, especially if you want big
Mm-hmm.
things. But easy in the sense that you don't need additional friction created by these patterns to move into states that allow you to do your best work
Yeah.
and ultimately set yourself up to do the things that you want. So what lands
Mm-hmm.
for you there?
Um, okay. So with that, my life would definitely be a lot easier if I if I if I wasn't afraid to be rejected, or if I always did what I know I have to do. Yeah, things will be a lot easier for me, and definitely a lot less friction. Smooth sailing.
Okay. So that's a start, right? How do you
Mm-hmm.
feel in your body when you say that?
Feels good.
Yeah. Feels lighter. You're showing up. Like even when I'm like looking at you on camera, it looks and feels lighter,
Mm.
right? But it took us a solid like what, 10 minutes of me like prompting you to like get to this
Uh-huh.
place. So you see how much resistance there is to just, oh wait, hold on. I don't have to like do millions of reps to like get rid of my rejection. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's another, like if we're looking at these head trash pieces, the one that is the undercurrent amongst all of them is like it has to be hard.
Mm.
So does that land with you?
It has to be hard. I guess in a way, yeah, because in order to, yeah, I don't know, to
And it
get
might
me
be a
from,
different wording. Like that's my interpretation, but you might have a different word that resonates with you. So by all means, if you need to share the right words for you, by all means do so.
yeah, maybe I do think that it requires a lot more repetitions than it actually needs to require.
Yep. And how do you feel
Yeah.
when you think about that?
Um, it almost it almost seems surreal because it's hard for me to believe that it can be that much easier.
And when you look at your life, or let's just say your business, that's perfectly reflected. Everything has to take reps, things have to move slowly, right? There has to be this whole big iteration, right? The
Mm-hmm.
It's overwhelming. There's too many things. It's like perfectly
Yeah.
reflective of that belief as well.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I don't know how to how to make it all disappear.
Okay. Well, I mean that's a deeper discussion. That's what I do in my coaching. And the reason that I ask you these questions is because well-meaning individuals like yourself who are actively working and aren't shy of work oftentimes get into this trap where we believe that it's through addition, meaning if I add more tools to my toolkit to better cope with these things, if I just expose myself enough, if I journal enough, if I say enough affirmations, if I meditate harder, if I think more positively more often and then feel guilty when I don't think positively, then at some point it'll be enough for me to like overcome these things. That focus on adding, doing more,
Mm-hmm.
eliminates the possibility that you could actually do the opposite and subtract. What if I just subtracted the beliefs that create the patterns that it's bad to be rejected?
Mm.
Right? What if I subtracted the parts of me that are scared to be visible or seen as less than or seen as messy? Because the reality is, those parts of you had a very important role at some point in your life, generally some point in childhood, to get you through certain times. And because they got you through certain times, right? Because you know about reinforcement, they stuck around. They had no reason to actually be eliminated. And then they started to act out in your business and in other adult situations they're not no longer needed in. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where I'm getting at when I'm reflecting to you and both through you to other people, this unnecessary need to go the long way through, when if you just switched it to what can I subtract that isn't actually authentically me versus what can I add to get better at being me, it changes the landscape on what you can do and the amount of time that you can do it in. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I know that was a lot your way. What lands for you?
Um, yeah, the idea of feeling lighter, right? You have some experience where you feel like you release something and then you feel good and you feel lighter. So when you're talking about releasing those patterns that I'm holding on to, I have that understanding of the feeling lighter and how much more effortless it is to operate from a space where you don't feel like you need to drag a bunch of weight behind in order to get somewhere.
Yes, that's exactly it, and a perfect analogy to what I was saying. So I'm glad that it's landing because it can shortcut your way through this whole process. So I know we obviously can't get into eliminating all of those in this container. But as far as mapping this out and seeing, what's kind of at playing and the interplay of things, does this feel complete for you, or is there still something left outstanding?
I Yeah, it feels complete. It was interesting because I had no idea what was going to come out because I think that I'm quite self-aware, but once again, you managed to really pinpoint everything and just uh, put it in a way that is easy to understand and really highlight it in a very concise and precise way. And that was very helpful for me. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and I'm glad that it came out for you that way. So thank you for stepping up and allowing yourself to be witnessed in this way. And why don't you just close us off and let everybody know where to find you, who's the best person to find you, floor is yours for that.
Sure. Well, our website is familypupz.com, and our podcast is there, our blog page for dog parents, as well as our courses. And on Instagram, we have the same handle, Family Pupz, PUPZ. So happy to connect at any time.
Beautiful. Love it. Well, as always, those will be included in the show notes. But Tanya, thank you very much for coming on. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.